Shadow of the Erdtree DLC has brought us a lot of brand new stuff, including some brand new bell bearings for a lot of very needed materials. In this video, I'm going to very quickly show you all the brand new bell bearing locations, including the ones that are related to characters. So there's a little bit of a warning for some NPCs. Let's get into it. Starting this video off, we're going to go after the Herbalist bell bearing, and this is actually going to give you Rata fruit, which is very useful for Torrent. You want to make your way to the Pillar Path Waypoint site of Grace. You're actually going to probably come across, the very first time you go to this area, one of the NPCs called Igon. He's going to be yelling and wailing on the ground. This is the location you want to go from. Now from this waypoint, you want to follow your pathing to the right, where you're going to eventually come across an NPC that's going to invade your world, along with a lot of the gravestone birds. They're going to attack you, but what you want to do is go to the little cliffside that I'm putting Torrent up to, and you'll see a pot hanging from a string on one of the opposite cliffs. What you want to do is simply knock it down and break it any way that you possibly can. I usually think the bows are the easiest. You'll see an item that drops. All you have to do at that point is walk over to this item, and this is going to be the bell bearing that you're looking for. Next is going to be the Stringseller's bell bearing, which of course, as you might imagine, gives you string. You want to make your way over to Prospect Town on the other side of this entire first area of the DLC, and into this very small ravine inside of Prospect Town. Now once you get to this area, there's not going to be a lot going on, but if you look around closely, you will end up seeing another pot hanging from a string right above you. Just like before, break this pot however you want to. Again, I recommend using a bow because you can actually target it very easily and go pick up the item, which is going to be the bell bearing. Now string comes up a lot more in certain crafting items than you might think, so this is an extremely helpful bell bearing. Next, we're going to have the Mushroom Seller's bell bearing number 1. As you might imagine, this is going to give you a certain number of mushrooms, a certain kind of mushroom. You're going to want to start from that river mouth cave that I just showed you, that side of Grace, which you could get to by going south of the Temple Town ruins and down some of the tombstones that are on the side of a cliff to get you down to this bottom area. Once you're at the bottom, you should be able to easily find the river mouth cave itself, but what you want to do is get to the end of this area. That'll be very quickly, easily able to come across. You'll get to this area and you'll see that there's another pot hanging from a string that you can crack open to get this particular bell bearing. This will allow you to purchase mushrooms and red flesh mushrooms from the Round Table Hold merchant. Next, we're going to move on to the Mushroom Seller bell bearing number 2, which can be easily found right next to the Alec River downstream site of Grace. Noted, it may take you some time if you don't explore the region as thoroughly as possible to get to this site of Grace, but when you do, I want you to follow the pathing that I'm showing you, because you're going to have to get to a particular spot inside of this area to shoot another pot that is hanging from a string. And I was saying follow my path because it's super easy to miss this particular pot hanging from a string, because it's right next to the waterfall and it's just something that doesn't catch your eye right away. So once you go down the slope to the base of this waterfall, you will eventually see this pot hanging from a string, and if you're online, you'll see a lot of different messages just saying that you need to shoot in this particular area to get this particular pot. From here, it's just as simple as what we did previously. Shoot down the pot and there's going to be an item that drops down. I will say be careful of trying to drop down immediately. You will die from fall damage from this location. So take your time getting to the bottom. Don't worry, this item will not disappear if you go back to a site of Grace and rest and come back for it, but this is going to be the other mushroom that's going to give you toxic mushrooms and white flesh mushrooms. Next, we're going to have the Moldmongers bell bearing location. I want you to make your way to the Recluse's River downstream site of Grace. It will take you a little bit of time to get here because there is particular pathing you need to get to this location, but thankfully as soon as you get here, you'll be able to knock down this pot. Now, just like the previous location as well, you can't jump down directly, but thankfully there are a bunch of tombstones you can jump down very quickly to get to the bottom of this ravine where this new bell bearing has dropped. Now, as you can imagine, just by the name of the Moldmongers bell bearing, you're going to have a particular kind of mold. You're going to get fly mold, which you can get by defeating the fly men, but this just makes it that much easier to get instead of killing a bunch of enemies. Next, we have the Greasemongers bell bearing, which can be found very close to the Church District High Road site of Grace. This is where you're going to be able to find this site of Grace. It's a little hidden if you don't go to this area very often. But when you do get to this area, you want to basically backtrack your way towards where you saw the giant torch golem and basically hug the right side of the cliff, where you're going to see a bunch of different wolves hanging out in one particular spot with a bunch of gray and one particular white wolf. In this area, you'll very quickly end up seeing one of the pots hanging from a string that once again you can knock down by using a bow. Of course, once again, just like the other locations that are on a cliff, shoot this down and don't drop down immediately because you will end up dying. Take your time getting down to this area to get this Greasemongers bell bearing, which gives you root resin and knot resin. Our next bell bearing is going to be the Spellmachinist bell bearing, and it's in a location that you may not have found if you haven't gone through a guide to get a certain spirit ash from Ymir's main questline. Nonetheless, let me show you exactly where you need to go. Now, there's a couple different ways to get to the Shaman Village, but however you do get to the Shaman Village, which is related to a specific questline, Ymir's questline, you'll be able to get to this through that questline or just by thoroughly exploring the Shadowkeep and everything that area has to offer. Nonetheless, when you get to the Shaman Village, you'll be able to see a bunch of cliffs that you can jump down to get to the the tower down below. I would definitely recommend taking your time getting through all these different jumps, because if you go too quickly, you'll easily fall off the edge. But whenever you get down to the tower in question, you will see a ledge that you can jump down to, which is a little difficult at times, but it's not that difficult, especially since you are able to easily get to this location at this point. And now that you're on this ledge, simply get into this area, into the top of this tower. You'll very quickly see a puppet that is related to a different kind of video altogether. What we're here for is actually down another level off the edge. Don't worry, if you jump off this edge, you will not die from fall damage. You're going to very quickly in the corner see a body with a purple item. This purple item is going to be the Spellmachinist Bell Bearing. This will allow you to buy Rabbit's Bolt from the NPC Twin Maiden Husks inside of the Roundtable Hold. One NPC Bell Bearing that you're able to get a couple different ways is going to be Moore's Bell Bearing. You can either do this by fighting him inside the final fight against Letta, attacking one of the Forager Brood, or telling him to be sad forever doing his very short quest line. There is a way to get Igon's Bell Bearing, someone who I mentioned very early on inside of this video. As a location, you can start to find one of the other Bell Bearings in the area by breaking a pot. If you go through Igon's full quest line, you'll be able to get his full armor set, his bow, and eventually his Bell Bearing. This will allow you to create some of Igon's great bolts that help you kill dragons. And finally, during Ymir's questline, the one that's surrounded by all the different finger locations and the finger whistles, you'll be able to fight one of the NPCs during this questline, towards the end of this questline, and during that defeat of that person, you will get their Bell Bearing. I'm not going to tell you exactly which one it is, so it doesn't spoil everything of this particular questline. Just know that by completing this questline to the very end, you will get this Bell Bearing. And that's how you can get every single one of the new Bell Bearings inside of Shadow of the Erdtree. Some based on questlines, some based on NPCs, some by just breaking a bunch of pots. If you guys did find this location guide helpful, please let me know by hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below, and let me know your favorite one out of all of these different Bell Bearings that you're going to definitely be using for their materials most often. I know I use the string one a lot just because it goes with a lot of the different string greases, but nonetheless, let me know down in the comments. Once again, I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one.